Sometimes the quietest moments in life hide the loudest screams. I'm Lucy Harper, 32 years old, a mechanical engineer. I thought everything was under control at least. That's what I believed. Order was the meaning of life for me. I woke up at the same time every morning, drank my coffee from the same mug, and started my day with Daniel's smile. My sister Emma would text me constantly. Did you have breakfast? Feeling great today. Miss you. And I missed them too. Really. Who could have known that every one of those messages was actually the echo of a silent betrayal? The day before I left for Italy, Daniel brushed my hair and said, "The house will be so quiet without you." I looked into his eyes and searched for even the smallest trace of a lie, and found none. I trusted him. That trust became the first link in a chain that would tear me apart. Arriving in Italy fell into the busiest stretch of my life. The project in Rome was huge. Long nights, complex designs, calculations that drained the mind. Yet through it all, something was missing. Daniel's calls shortened. Emma stopped calling. At first I blamed the time difference, the workload. But a woman's intuition, an unseen hand inside you kept whispering, "Something's wrong." One night in my hotel room, I sat by the window. Rome's lights spread before me. Outside, the city hummed. Inside my chest, my heart beat. A message from Daniel lit up my phone. "I'm really tired today. Can we talk tomorrow?" Such an ordinary sentence. But he hadn't put a period at the end. That tiny, meaningless detail lodged itself in the corner of my mind. Engineers notice small things. Sometimes life collapses because of the smallest cracks. Slowly, I noticed oddities in Emma's posts. One day, she posted a photo of a new necklace with the caption, "Fate sometimes gives unexpected gifts." I recognized that necklace, the one Daniel had bought for me but forgotten to send. The little scratch on the chain gave it away. My stomach hollered, but my brain went to work. Maybe it's coincidence. Maybe someone else bought the same model. Self-deception is as easy as belief. I began keeping notes every night. Daniel's shifts in tone, the rhythm of calls, Emma's online hours. A woman's intuition combined with an engineer's analytical mind produces a terrible certainty. I was closing in, step by silent step. On my last night in Italy, I had a nightmare. Daniel and Emma at a table, laughing. I watched them but could not speak. I woke with trembling hands. It felt so real, I couldn't regain myself at first. When I boarded my flight back to the US, that image stayed with me. Waiting for me was not just my home, but the truth itself. I wasn't ready to face it yet. When I returned, Daniel greeted me at the airport. His smile was the same, but his eyes belonged to a stranger. As he hugged me, I smelled Emma's perfume. Something clicked in my head. That scent clinging to him smelled like lies. I said nothing. Not yet. At home, everything looked in place, maybe too neat. Flowers on the table, a made bed, a tidy kitchen. Daniel isn't that meticulous. Someone had come into my space, and that someone had touched what was mine. That night, after Daniel went to sleep, I crept down to the living room without turning on a lamp. I opened my laptop and scanned the home network. Camera feeds, backups, cloud syncs. An engineer looks for vulnerabilities in her own life. Eventually, she finds one. I found one. An audio file dated 3 weeks earlier when I had been in Rome. I played it. Emma's laughter filled the room. Then Daniel's voice. "No one will know. I promise." My breath stopped. My eyes burned. I didn't cry because crying would have meant giving them the victory. I didn't cry. I calculated. Even that tiny clip exposed the system's weakest point. People hide their secrets in the open. That voice recording was only one piece of evidence. I wanted the whole truth. The next day, after Daniel left for work, I called Emma. No answer. I texted, "Can't wait to see you." She didn't respond. That evening, Daniel returned tense, so the message must have reached them. I realized I had begun to disturb their fragile peace, and I liked it. That night I lay staring at the ceiling and whispered to myself, Lucy Harper is dead. A new one is born. I was now the silent arm of justice. I would take back what belonged to me with their own hands, over time, coldly, like an engineer planned, calculated, flawless. Betrayal taught me something. Revenge isn't an explosive outburst. It's a system that grows quietly. I had begun building that system. They didn't know it yet. Soon they would. Everything has a price. I would collect theirs. After the initial shock subsided, pain turned into a cold attention and calculation. I stopped being ready to sob or shout. I became a machine. Every reaction, every feeling had to be timed. Haste would ruin everything. If revenge is an art, you must master the canvas before the first stroke. I turned days and nights into a regimented plan. My home became a laboratory. I tracked phones left on overnight, the hours messages were sent, which apps synced, what photos uploaded to which cloud, which files appeared on which device. People make mistakes at unexpected moments. I waited for those mistakes. I replaced emotion with a checklist. Each item became the basis for the next move. Technology became my accomplice. Phone metadata anomalies, duplicated files across devices, long silent stretches in call logs, they all told stories. Emma's social accounts showed patterns, posts at specific hours, stories that were later deleted, posts shared only with a few people. Each deleted story pointed to something. Daniel's account changes, odd photo tags, dishes left on the counter, a half cup of coffee, a fallen tissue, everything connected. I didn't stalk like a predator. I moved like a shadow. But I avoided direct confrontation. I didn't want them to suspect me. So I began to play with their behavior's silent experiments. I left small traces and then had them removed. I intentionally withheld messages I normally would send. I slightly rearranged items in the house. All of it measured their reactions. I wanted to map the anatomy of their betrayal, how they hid, which rituals repeated, when they relaxed. The moment they let their guard down would be the point to strike. I isolated myself socially. To my mother, my friends, my neighbours, I was the composed Lucy. Inside, the lab hummed. I tightened my routine, morning calculations, midday analysis, nights of waiting. To outsiders, it might have looked like depression or job stress. No one would see the meticulous, smouldering calculation inside me. That was my advantage. No one noticed the slow burn because I had learned to reduce it to ashes. Collecting evidence was a means, not an end. As the proof accumulated, my anger reshaped. What had once rent me in pieces became cold logic. Documents, photos, recordings, they were mirrors of their arrogance. I examined every shard before shattering that mirror. I chose my moves carefully. First, I checked camera angles. Some corners were always out of view. Those blind spots would be useful later. I audited financial movements, petty purchases, gas stops, restaurant receipts. Money doesn't lie. Where secret meetings and escapes occur, money is often the bridge. A coffee receipt, a taxi slip, an odd hotel booking. Each opened a little door. I didn't want Emma forced into a meltdown. Emotional explosions would muddy the evidence. Instead, I built simple scenarios around her: who she met, which friends showed up, who stayed silent, who looked neutral. Every person was a map. I drew routes through that map. Daniel's off-hours routines, business trips, evening workouts, all went onto my timeline. My body changed along with my behavior. I slept less, dreamed clearer. My steps grew heavier. Silence sharpened me. Family breakfasts became performances. I simulated happiness. That false tranquility would lower their guard. Their comfort would be my cover. One night, while browsing Daniel's computer, I found a photo. Daniel leaning on Emma's shoulder. Amateur shot. Background blurred. The metadata told the rest date, location, device. The date matched a day I'd been in Rome. My heart didn't race. I suppressed feeling. A thought took its place. This photo wasn't just proof, it revealed a vulnerability in their confidence. Target the weakness. Every new discovery made me more cautious. They'd made a mistake. My job was to widen that mistake into a network. The network needed depth and redundancy. If one piece failed, others would hold. I cross-checked phone logs with photos, finances with locations, social posts with objects around the house. One piece alone couldn't bring the structure down. My first real experiment was small and harmless in appearance. Daniel kept a notebook for daily notes. I deliberately left it out of place. Waiting to see whether they noticed was a powerful diagnostic. Would they panic, conceal, or pretend nothing happened? Their reaction would shape subsequent moves. These tiny experiments both wore them down and gave me fresh data. But every plan has a cost. As my former innocence fractured, parts of my soul were lost. I didn't like the transformation, yet I accepted it. The pursuit of justice was hardening me. Sometimes I caught myself in the mirror and saw a cold light in my eyes. That light frightened me and drove me. I walked the thin line between fear and fuel. By the end of that phase, one truth had settled. Revenge wasn't a sudden explosion. It was planned mathematics. I was writing the equation and executing it deliberately. Next came first concrete moves traps that would catch them unprepared, shattering the confidence they clung to. The trap would not be loud or theatrical. It would be subtle, elegant, irreversible. When they noticed, it would already be too late. I designed the trap to break the trust between them by eroding their privacy. Privacy is the shield of intimacy. Tear it, and vulnerability follows. I examined the house for weak points, blind camera angles, Wi-Fi dead zones, quiet windows and doors. I timed their routines. Morning coffees, Daniel's post-work shower rhythm, Emma's late-night computer hours. Those rituals became my metronome. I staged small disappearances. I left Daniel's notebook purposefully in the wrong drawer, made a photograph casually visible in a half-closed album on the table, left subtle hints that matched deleted items in Emma's social media history. Each small sign would force them to react, panic, hide, rearrange. Panic narrows the mind and breeds mistakes, and mistakes were what I needed. One Thursday morning I began. Daniel had left for work. I acted as if distracted and made tiny changes. A book nudged, a towel flipped, a coffee mug turned the other way. These tiny distortions were designed to be noticed. When routine is interrupted, people become defensive. Defense leads to concealment. Concealment leads to error. That afternoon, the engine started. Daniel came home earlier than usual. My scenarios flashed through my head. If he returned early, would he spot my marks? Would he react with immediate fixes or panicked hiding? Both outcomes mattered. I watched from the shadows as he noticed a few of the changes. He searched, opened drawers, moved from room to room. My trap was working. Investigation, concealment, agitation. That tightening in his hand, sweat on his palm was the first small crack. The next evening, Emma returned late, face tight, steps quick, avoiding eye contact. She scrolled her phone but didn't talk. I set the next phase in motion, making their guilt visible to each other. When guilt is visible from the outside, it grows inside. Growing guilt begets larger mistakes. Midweek, I found a small program on Daniel's computer I hadn't noticed before, something that quietly leaked information. I manipulated it so certain camera footage blurred at chosen moments. This created a false sense of security and gave me a curtain to move behind later. I introduced a fault into their security so their trust would visibly erode. As my moves took effect, a shallow satisfaction flared inside me, but it was short-lived. The human cost of my maneuvers gnawed at me. A handwritten note I left on Emma's desk, like a careless scrawl, sent her into deep distress. I saw her alone late at night with red eyes. People fall apart in private. I watched that vulnerability and felt a small fracture within myself. But the plan required coldness. I recorded their fractures as evidence. The main aim was to erode mutual trust. I planted a small slip in Daniel's wallet, a stray receipt or note that would create suspicion when found. Each tiny thing made them glance at each other differently. Conversations shortened. Eyes went elsewhere. Their silence became the visible tension I had created. That tension fed me and worried me the plan worked, but at the price of a wound in my chest. One day, a bigger crack appeared. Emma rushed and knocked a photo off the glass table. It fluttered to the floor, corner peeled. Daniel's face clear, leaning on Emma's shoulder. The sound of it striking the floor felt enormous. The thud of my pulse, the floor's scrape, the unknown in them. Emma stepped back, pale. Daniel picked the photo up and his expression shifted. My tiny apertures had widened into open doors. The trap's purpose wasn't a single grand confession, but a cascade of small admissions that would accelerate their ruin. I wanted to expand their small lies, fuel their impulse to hide, and stop them from speaking. Conversation is the antidote to secrecy. Silence lets lies grow. The first trap was a test, and it succeeded. Results pleased and warned me. I was pleased because the plan worked, warned because the next stages demanded more care. They now suspected each other and hid small untruths. I continued weaving a web that would one day ensnare them completely. At night, I opened a ledger in my head. Results on one side, potential risks on the other. The plan moved forward, but every scheme has a fragile balance. I had to preserve it. Revenge is art and balance. Too fast breaks, too slow wastes chances. I had learned to walk that fine line. Then the final preparation began. I became the system itself, heart muted, logic high. Daniel made coffee one morning and I noticed his hands trembling a tiny but telling detail. That tremor wasn't guilt as much as fear, and it signaled I was winning. I started changing small things around the house deliberately. A frame nudged a few inches, a pillow rotated, a mug moved to a different shelf. Humans think they don't notice. The subconscious records it all. Daniel's tight expression deepened daily. A quiet war waged, unseen. I spent nights planning. Notes, diagrams, timelines. An engineer constructs systems. My system was the architecture of revenge, cold, silent, flawless. Emma was my first emotional target. She believed in refuge of affection, but had stolen someone else's love. I could have struck directly, but easy routes rarely leave permanent marks. I wanted her to disintegrate from within, so I slipped an anonymous email into her inbox. Some secrets whisper at night, Emma. No matter how quiet you are, someone is listening. No sender, no trace. The next day, her social media was gone. The message had landed. Daniel required hard evidence. He lied looking straight at you. Words would not work. Facts would. I dove deeper into our home's digital veins, modem logs, network histories, automatic backups. There it was. His phone's backup accidentally left on a shared drive. I downloaded it. Hundreds of photos, messages, location logs. My eyes stung, but not from crying. This was nervous reaction, like a machine shorting, and I reprogrammed myself that night. Emotion off, method on. One photo froze me. Emma holding my kitchen mug. Daniel's grey robe blurred in the background. Dated 3 weeks earlier, the day I'd been in Rome. Nothing about that moment stirred pain, only crystalline clarity. An engineer recognizes when a plan is validated. I felt that validation and, with it, a cold determination. 2 options remained. Either I vanished silently into nothing, or I trapped them in their own game. I chose the latter. A few days later, Daniel suggested a weekend visit to Emma. He couldn't look me in the eye. He felt that I knew. I smiled and said, "Great idea." My smile was so calm he believed it. but behind it the quiet plan had already taken shape. I was ready to step into their space not as a guest, but as the designer of their downfall. A structure built on a faulty foundation will fall. I didn't need explosives, just the right crack, and time would widen it. The crack would be subtle and deadly. The weekend arrived and everything went as rehearsed. Daniel drove. I watched from the passenger seat as shadows and movements I had imagined played out. I had rehearsed every second, every word, every look thousands of times in my head. When Emma opened the door, hair up, an old light blue sweater on the colour I used to like my stomach turned. I smiled anyway, pretending nothing had happened, as if the woman who had broken on that hotel room floor in Rome still existed. We talked, we drank coffee, we laughed through old memories. Inside, the clock ticked. Each minute, each word had weight. When the moment came, it would all fall into place. Daniel stepped into the yard. Emma stayed in the kitchen. Silence, only the kettle's hiss. I placed my hands on the counter and moved slowly behind her. Some might say I hesitated, but there was no hesitation in me, only a measured breath. Heart steady, no fear, no thrill, only cold resolve. I said her name softly. She turned. Guilt flashed across her face and she could not speak. I told her calmly, "Some secrets don't let you sleep at night, do they, Emma?" Her face drained. I watched the panic claim her. People don't die in a moment. They die inside the slow strangulation of their own conscience. I observed that silence. In that instant, everything ended. Words were unnecessary. Only truth's weight remained. Daniel came back in. He froze when he saw us, his eyes raw with a naked fear so pure it was almost beautiful. "What's going on?" he asked. I smiled. "Nothing," I said. "Just closing my accounts." I pulled a folder from my bag. Inside, everything: messages, photos, recordings, each item dated and ordered chronologically. I laid it on the table. It was as neat as my justice. Daniel's hands shook as he reached. "Lucy, please," he began. "Please," I echoed. "You lost please 3 months ago, Daniel." Emma began to cry. I only watched. Their tears were not mine. They drowned in the lies they had made. I felt nothing for them. I said simply, "I won't tell anyone." "Not you, not anyone. But every morning you look at each other, you will remember this folder. Every laugh will have these pages echoing under it. Every touch will carry me. I don't have to shout to ruin you. I will simply stay silent." I left the folder on the table and went to the door. Daniel tried to say something behind me, but I did not hear it. The world was silent, like the echo inside me. In the car, the sun was going down, the sky a blood-red smear that matched the peace inside me. I looked in the rear view at the silhouette of the house and, for the first time in months, I smiled, truly smiled. Nothing mattered anymore. When I left that house, Lucy Harper would no longer exist. A version of Lucy died there, and from her ashes something else was born, darker, maybe stronger, certainly truer. Wind lifted my hair. I rolled the window down and whispered, "Justice has been served." The engine drowned the last echoes of the past.